Okay, so this is Chapter 3 review, and we're going to start with the addition property. We're going to go through rather quickly all of Chapter 3 so that you get to see a really quick flash of each piece before you take the test. If there's a section you really don't remember very well, go back and re-watch that section again to help you prepare for the test. So like I said, we're going to start with the addition property. And the addition property says if A plus B, or excuse me, if A equals B, then A plus C equals B plus C. Because originally you'd have the C equals C. We know A and B are equal, so if we add them to the other sides, or one to each side, they should be the same thing. So basically what that means is when we're looking at a problem like this, we can always add the same thing to both sides as much as I want to. They may not look exactly the same to start, but they are the same. But let's watch. So I want to get the x by itself, so I'm going to make sure I draw a mirror. That means I'm going to do the same thing on the left side as I do on the right side. It wouldn't be fair if I only did on one side. Subtract that 7 from both sides. Here we get 0, 7 minus 7, and we're left with x. Negative 7 and positive 2, you subtract and you get 5. 7 is larger than a 2, 7 is negative, so my answer is negative. So now we're looking at multiplication property, and it's very similar, and it says that if A equals B, then A times C equals B times C. So let's watch and see how this works. So again, we want the x by itself. Draw my mirror. Opposite operations, it's a multiplication, negative 3 times y. Opposite would be division. Here, negative 3 divided by negative 3 would be 1, and I'm left with y. On this side, a negative divided by a negative would be positive. 3 goes into 42 14 times. So your answer is 14. All right, we'll do one more. Here, it's going to be very difficult because this is a multiplication problem, but we can't divide with fractions. So when a fraction's in place and we need to do the opposite, we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of negative 1/3 is negative 3 over 1. I do the same thing to both sides. Now I can simplify. A negative times a negative is a positive. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 1 divided by 1 is 1. So y equals, on this side, negative times a positive is negative. 3 times 4 is 12. Okay, using those properties together. So now putting it all into place. Remember that we need to draw our mirror. We're going to do opposite operations. So I always want to get rid of the parentheses first. So I'm going to distribute when I'm looking at the parentheses like that. The 3a's up front doesn't affect it, plus 5 times a minus 5 times 2. Clean it all up. 5 times a is 5a. Negative 5 times 2 is negative 10. Now I'm going to collect my like terms on the same side. So on this side I have a 3a and a 5a, and 3 plus 5 is 8a. Can I add the 8a and the negative 10 together? No. We have candy corn and Smarties. They're not the same. I can't add them together. So now I'm ready to start moving everything away from the variable. So we're going to start with addition and subtraction. So this is a plus 10. It's minus 10. I'm going to add 10 to both sides. This gives me 0. 8a left on the left side. 10 and 6 is 16. Division's next. So a equals 2. So now we have the variable on the side by itself. And the last step we're going to do in this problem, and ignore that problem coming up, we're going to add and subtract. So we have this 23, it's positive. If I subtract it from both sides, I get 0 here, so I've left x by itself, which is my plan. 23 and 21, one's positive, one's negative, subtract, and I get 2. Is 23 larger or 21 larger? Remember, you're not talking about negative 23. You're talking about just plain 21, 23. 23 is larger. It's negative. Your answer is negative. If this problem had continued on, you would also multiply and divide at that point. So let's try one more time. draw our mirror. We know we're going to distribute to get rid of those parentheses every time. Here, 4 times 3 plus 4 times 5y minus 4. 3 is left alone, plus 2 times y minus 2 times 2. Clean that up. 12 plus 20y minus 4 equals 3 plus 2y minus 4. We're going to collect like terms on the same side of the equation. So on this side, I have a 12 and a negative 4. So 12 minus 4 would be 8 plus 20y. On this side, we have a 3 and a negative 4. That would be negative 1 plus 2y. Then we want to get the variable on the same side. And remember, I like to subtract the smaller one because then it becomes an easy subtraction problem. My brain doesn't have to do a lot of extra work. 2y minus 2y is 0, left with negative 1 on the right side. 8, nothing happens to. 20 minus 2 is 18. I don't have to worry about what's negative and positive. It's a subtraction problem that's pretty easy. Now I'm going to add and subtract to try to get that variable alone. So this is a positive 8 and it's added on. So the opposite would be subtracting. Here we get our 0, 8 minus 8. 18y equals, they're both negative, so I add and they stay negative. Remember that addition and subtraction is very different than multiplication and division. So now last step, multiply and divide. 18 divided by 18 is 1. Remember over here, look, the smaller numbers on top. I'm not going to say how many times is 9 going to 18 becomes 2. I need to keep the smaller number on top. I know I can divide by 9. So here, 9 divided by 9 is 1. 18 divided by 9 is 2. And I end up with a fractional answer. Just be careful. Make sure you look at it before you start dividing. All right, so now we're going to look at clearing fractions. This is one of my favorite parts. And might not be for you, but if you can do it correctly, it should help you when you see those fractions and make you not freak out because of it. So remember, your first step is to find a common denominator. And here we have 16, 4, 4, and 8. I always start with the largest one and see if they all can be multiplied to get 16. So 4 times 4 would give me 16. 4 times 4 would give me 16. 8 times 2 would give me 16. So my common denominator is 16. Now you're going to multiply every piece of the puzzle by that 16. Sorry about that. And now let's simplify some of this. So you have 16 on top and 8 on the bottom. So you can say 16 divided by 8. 8 divided by 8 becomes 1. 16 divided by 8 is 2. 2 times 7 is 14x. Minus, here again, 4 divided by 4 would be 1, and 16 divided by 4 would be 4. 1 times 4 is 4. Plus, it's right there. 3/4, so again, 4 divided by 4 would be 1, 16 divided by 4 would be 4, 3 times 4 is 12x equals, 16 divided by 16 would be 1, so I'm left with 1, and there's no fraction here, so it's just 16 times x. Now the stress level goes down, and we're able to kind of handle this problem a little bit nicer. I'm going to stop there, because really the point of that lesson was to make sure that you got the fractions to disappear. So we'll go ahead and do the next problem. Again, common denominator, the highest number is 12. So 3 times 4 is 12, 3 times 4 is 12, 4 times 3 is 12, 4 times 3 is 12. So I can make everything equal 12, so that is my common denominator. Multiply this side by 12, this part by 12, this by 12, this by 12, this by 12. So again, 12 divided by 3, so this would be 12 divided by 3 would be 4, 3 divided by 3 would be 1. So I'm left with 4 times 5, which is 20. And there was a plus right here. 12 divided by 3 is 4. 3 divided by 3 is 1. So 4 times 2 is 8x. bring down my equal sign. 12 divided by 12 is 1, so I'm left with 25. 12 divided by 4 would be 3, and 4 divided by 4 is 1. 5 times 3 is 15x. Don't forget your x. Plus 12 divided by 4 is 3, and 4 divided by 4 is 1, so I get 9. Let's go ahead and just solve this one. So now, remember, you go back to your steps. Everything's fine now. The fractions are gone. So you're going to say collect things that are like on each side. Well, can I add these two together? No, because it's candy corn and Smarties. Over here, though, I have 25 and 9, and they're similar. They're both numbers without variables. So when I add those two together, I get 34. And in the same situation, I can't add the two together. Now I want the x on the same side. So again, I subtract to me, I usually would subtract the smaller one. You can do either way. It'll work. 8 minus 8 is 0, and I'm left with 20. Bring down your 34. 15 minus 8 is a positive 7. Get the variable by itself. So we're going to add and subtract. Since the 34 is positive and we're looking at an addition problem, it's positive here. I'm going to subtract. That equals 0. Over here, one's positive, one's negative. I'm going to subtract. Which one's bigger, 34 or 20? 34, and 34 was negative. And bring down that 7x. Now I'm going to divide both sides by 7. Negative, and you'll notice the bigger numbers on top this time. 14 divided by 7 would give me that 2, and it stays negative. Over here, 7 divided by 7 is 1, and I'm left with x. Let me do that. There we go.